You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the HOMEWORKcast podcast. With me is Lisa Gullickson, Wife Dork.
It doesn't work on anyone. It depends on the face.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
I have no quotes.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, also without quotes. And welcome to the HOMEWORKcast podcast, HOMEWORKcast.
It's surprising that Brad doesn't have a quote because he's like the guy with the quotes.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could do a quote from this film, it would be all that tap dancing at the end.
Oh, that was really cool.
That'd be an awesome quote.
Spoiler alert. Jeez, that was the best part of the movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. That was my fave. Every movie should end with a dance number.
That's right.
They've got it right.
If it's going to be this good of a dance number, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And this movie that we are talking about is The Blind Swordsman, Zatoichi. Takashi Kitano's 2003 interpretation of the classic Japanese character Zatoichi. So this was Lisa's homework assignment given to her by myself. And so what did you think?
I really enjoyed it. I enjoy these stories of like feudal Japan and samurai. I love that the setting is so timeless, and the way that and the way that Takashi Kitano directed it and the colors he infused, you would not be able to tell this from, one from the 50s or one from the 60s.
Right.
Except for the addition of CG blood.
Yes.
That stands out very much in this film.
Yes. What were you going to say, Brad?
Well, just that, as film fans, the first samurai films you encounter are, the Kurosawa movies.
Correct.
Or the ones like Sword of Doom that are, Criterion approved.
Yes.
And you start to think that a samurai film is a particular type of genre, or that a samurai film has a particular type of tone.
Right.
And what's so great about Zatoichi, this one, and the original films as well. I have not seen all 24 of them.
Right.
But I've seen I think I've seen the first 6. I still haven't breached into 7 in my box set. I've had that box set for so long.
Yeah.
What's my holdup? It's a lot of movies. But these films are so much fun. And when I first saw Takeshi's version, I was expecting something more along the lines of a Yojimbo, and this is not that. So the comedy elements of this film just never worked for me originally.
Right.
But on this watch, I found myself enjoying that a heck of a lot more than the samurai action stuff.
Yeah. Now, for the listeners who are unfamiliar with Takashi Kitano, or Beat Takeshi as he is also affectionately known as, he is a Japanese actor, director, producer, writer. He started out doing Japanese comedy, and he was a comedian. So he started out doing comedy, and then he got into directing and became famous, or even more famous, at least to Western audiences, for his Yakuza films. Mm-hmm. And Yakuza films, like samurai films, are known to have a particular tone. They're usually grim and violent. And Takashi Kitano's Yakuza films definitely have those characteristics. But like The Blind Swordsman Zatoichi, they are also infused with heart and some comedic elements, too. And not overly comedic, not necessarily as pratfallish as Zatoichi, but there are
except
moments...
for the guy, that neighbor with the sign and the diaper running around.
Yeah, and so the Yakuza films that he's done don't have that level of comedy in it, but there are comedic moments or lines or characters who are offbeat and things like that. So for me, when it was announced that he was doing an interpretation of this character, I was curious because I know that's his tone from his films like Sanotain, even Kikujiro, which isn't a Yakuza film. It's a film about Takashi Kitano accompanying this little boy across Japan to find his mother during this kid's summer vacation. And he is basically playing his self, a characterized version of his Yakuza persona, accompanying this kid to find out where his mother is. But that film also has a lot of comedy and heart and drama in it. But with The Blind Swordsman, going back to what you were mentioning, Brad, about it kind of straying from conventional samurai films, what I like the most about it is that, yes, it is called Zatoichi, but like Mad Max Fury Road, it doesn't necessarily center around or star him. It's not. He's not really in it as much.
It's like a team up. It's a team up story.
Yeah, the movie focuses on the characters in this particular village that he happens to be passing through, and it tells their stories, and those stories kind of center around him, or he kind of weaves his way through those stories.
I think the main parallel that I see from Kurosawa's samurai films and this film is that you still have that Western feel.
Yes. That
we're building a team, we're making a plan, don't mess with us, this sense of honor, among killers and things like that. Yes. So it was interesting to see, and it was a fun watch.
And so the story is Zatoichi, as he always does in his films, he's a wanderer. He passes through towns. So he passes through this particular village, and in this village there is this war, as there usually are. But also going back to the Westerns and also previous samurai films like Yojimbo that you mentioned, Brad, there's these two clans that are at war in this town, and the townsfolk are caught in the middle. They're being extorted for protection money, and they're being cheated in the gambling houses, and they just have a miserable way of life because of these two gangs in this town. And Zatoichi passes through this town, and he meets different people from the town. He meets the first person he meets Aunt
Ome.
Ome, yes, and she's a kind farmer lady who allows Zatoichi to stay with her, and he also he returns the favor in helping out around her house. And then we meet her nephew, who's a resident gambler in the town. And
Shinkichi.
Yes, Shinkichi. And then we also meet on the other side of town. The story follows a Yojimbo, a bodyguard, a wandering bodyguard.
He's basically Mifune.
Yeah, played by Tasano Obu, who is. Remember, so I gave you the homework assignment, Redline, Brad. Right?
Oh yeah.
And so you remember JP's manager?
Yeah.
He voiced that character. Who also he is the star. He plays an Ichi the Killer. He's the guy with the slit mouth.
He's Ichi.
No, Ichi is the doofy guy who goes nuts and who stuck the pin in his ear. No, this is the guy that stuck the needle in his own ear. Yeah. So anyway, who's a great actor. So anyway, his storyline is he is a wandering. He's a ronin, a masterless samurai who's looking for work, and he's also has a sick wife, and so he's taking these odd jobs as a bodyguard. To pay for her care, and much to her behest, she does not want him killing people, least of all, for her. And so, but he feels this is what he must do to make money to care for his wife. And so, really, those are the two.
No, I don't think that those are the two. I guess there's three then, because then there's the Naruto sisters.
Oh my goodness, I forgot all about my favorite part. So, talk about them, Lisa. Those are my favorite characters in the film, actually.
So towards the beginning of the film, there are two geishas, and they are entertaining a man in this room, and one is playing the shamisen and the other one is dancing. And then there is some kind of break, and the one sister stops dancing because like the strings on the shamisen are loose. And then they
accidentally come loose.
Exactly. And then the one sister grabs the man and goes, "Do you remember us? You know, we're from the Naruto family. You were he was like the clerk of that family." And they slit his throat. Oh, she pulls a blade from her shamisen. There's lots of hidden blades. You know what? Just don't trust anybody with any kind of thing they're carrying around. If you can imagine a blade in it, there is a blade in it.
I'm always looking for an opportunity to stick a sword in something.
Yeah.
You know, like where can my hidden sword be?
So she pulls a blade out of the neck of the shamisen and she slits his throat. And so there are these two sisters that when they were very young, their family was killed by a gang because they were like rice merchants. They were fairly wealthy, and they just happened to be hiding at that time, and so their whole family gets wiped out. But they hear everything that's happening, and they hear the three names of the people. Let's see if I can find those names. They hear the three names of the people who are responsible for the murder of their family. And those names are, oh no, my handwriting is terrible. Tashiki, Insube, and the Kuchinawa boss. And so they, because they're now, orphans, they end up going to a, I guess, kind of geisha school. So, one of them is a boy, and one of them is a girl, but they're both begin to get training in the art of being a geisha, and something goes wrong, and they run away, but they continue their studies on their own, and
as geishas,
and so. And then they're going to use their geisha influence to then find these men and murder them. But the problem is these men, they don't know this, but these men are no longer going by these names. So there's a little bit of a mystery of who could these people be. And then, like a mystery you don't even know that you're following until the very end when all of those pieces come together. So that's their story.
So what did you think about those characters?
I loved them.
And their stories.
I would totally watch a movie that was entirely about them.
Yeah.
I actually, while I was going on to IMDb to make sure that I had everybody's names and everything, I saw the picture of the guy who plays Osei, the sister who was a boy. And his name is Dagoro Tachibana, and he's actually like a full-time, like that's what, like he's a, what is that kind of?
Kabuki?
Yeah, he's a kabuki actor, so he does like folk acting.
This is his only film.
Yeah, and so like this is what he does. So his images on IMDb are him in his makeup, and I just thought that was so beautiful that they would cast someone who is, explicitly experienced in this art, and his dancing was absolutely beautiful.
That scene. That's my favorite scene in the film.
Oh my gosh,
that's my favorite scene in the film.
It was so It's so beautiful, that scene.
I like
the first one, the flashback to
no. They have a flashback. So when they have a flashback to them remembering their childhood, and that's when we find out about their family and how they, as children, they were selling their bodies so they could just live. And then after we get their whole tragic story, we see the young Osei practicing with his sister, and it's intercut with the adult Osei practicing his dance, and they're doing the exact same moves, and they cut in between them, and as that happens, you can tell that this whole journey has like plagued his sister so much that she has to like stop playing, and Shinkichi, who has no idea what's going on and why there's just this intense feeling, just bursts into tears. It's really stunning.
I love that scene because the score for the film is one that I'm always talking about, and I say that the music has a bunch of great music that it just gives the movie an extra texture and feel. So the score is playing, and then the older sister starts playing over the score, and then the score fades out, and then you only hear her play the instrument and see the juxtaposition between past and present doing the dance routine, and then the score comes back in when Osei realizes that his sister stopped playing and he goes over to her. Like, I love that scene.
Yeah, I love that too. There are like lots of little moments where the what's happening on the screen syncs up with the score in a way that is very explicit, like a lot of times, like early in the film, there are farmers working in a field and they're working with hoes, and they're and you notice that their moves with the hose are syncing up with the score, and there's like this like they're doing like this percussion with farming equipment, and it happens again at the end of the film when they're building the house. And then when they get finally to the end where they have like their ending dance number, it all comes together that this whole town, that's how, rhythm is just infused into the people that they are, and that's how they celebrate. And it's just, I really enjoyed that element of the story. And the fact that someone would take the time to weave in the score so presently.
Yeah.
Kiichi Suzuki, who is the composer, he did the score for Tokyo Godfathers, and he would go on to do Outrage and Beyond Outrage for Takasha.
Kitano, yeah.
He actually, like in the early 90s, he was a video game director. He was the lead director on the Batman Tim Burton video game.
Oh, crap.
And the Gremlins 2 New Batch video game.
What? That's nuts.
Yeah, that's nuts.
That is an awesome career, man. That's badass. So, let's talk about the Yujimbo Hattori. What did you think about his storyline? Well, as far as I'm going to ask you, what did you think about his storyline, but also how his storyline and how it seemed like he and Zatoichi were on parallel paths that eventually connected at the end of the film.
You were waiting for them the entire time to clash. Yeah.
Absolutely. And at the same time, you didn't want it to happen because I'm looking up his name. Hattori Gensuke is the Ronin character, and he doesn't want to he doesn't want to be a mercenary. He wants to have an official position. He doesn't want to be a murderer. But he wants a job. He wants a job, and he feels like if he had enough money, he could find a cure for his wife. So like each time he kills someone, it takes from her, and it's probably in some way causing her illness because she's so worried all of the time, but he's just entirely too good. He's overqualified for his job. Yeah. So he's wiping out entire rival gangs. He works for the Goku. What are they called?
The Ginzo.
The Ginzo gang. He works for the Ginzo gang, and he wipes out entire clans of clumsy samurai.
And the Ginzo gang is the gang responsible for the death of the two geishas family.
That's right.
Yeah.
So as you're watching him go along, you know that he's going to eventually come up against Zatoichi, and Zatoichi is better than him in the dark, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And his death really is very tragic. And then the fact that his wife takes her own life, knowing that her husband is dead, just simultaneously.
Do you feel like that's why she did it? When I was watching it,
I think that she
last
knew.
night, I thought she was doing it because she felt like, well, if I'm dead, he won't have to. Firstly, I don't like living with knowing that he's doing this. Secondly, well, if I'm dead, he doesn't have to kill people anymore. I
think maybe that was it. I also think that she knew that she like what he was going up against. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, so Yeah, that makes it even more tragic. Oh, man, that's so sad.
Like, I think
I don't
that
want to be without him.
I think she just knew that there was just a point where he just wasn't going to make it anymore.
Yeah.
You just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And the story of the blind masseur became legendary very quickly.
So speaking of him,
He leaves an impression.
What did you think about Takeshi Kitano as Zatoichi, who's basically a cipher in the film? He's not much of a character in a traditional sense who has a character arc. He exits the story much as he enters.
He feels like, a tumbleweed going through, or a cloud. I mean, he feels like part of nature and less of a character.
Yeah.
Like the story is about this village and these people that populate it and their problems, and it's just how this entity pushes them in a particular direction that they need to go, or they sure as hell should not go.
But I think that I think that he has a sense of justice and a sense of compassion, and he stays for as long as he thinks there's injustice, and he rolls out when he's like the Three Amigos.
So there's something that I noticed this watch that I didn't notice the first 50 times I've seen the film. So in the very opening of the film, at that moment that you were talking about, Lisa, when you see the farmers working in the field syncing up to the music, there's a funeral procession passing as Zatoichi passes them. And they're holding that straw man. That's an old Japanese funeral procession, right?
Okay.
They're for the death of whoever that person was, and so you see them carrying that, and then at the end of that whole sequence, you see that I don't want to call it effigy. Yeah, you see that stand. You see it in the field where they've planted it. So Zatoichi was aware, passing that.
People
that
were dying.
That something was happening, right? So then later in the film, when Auntie's house gets burnt down, Zatoichi is making his way away from the house. He notices that Scarecrow laying in the middle of the road. He picks it up to go take it back to where it was planted. That's why he missed the people come to go burn the house.
Right.
And so just to even set that up in that way, like, it took me 50 watches to notice that, well, that's why that happened in the beginning of the film, him seeing that, so that it set it up for that moment. That moment was a callback to that. I thought that was really
true.
cool.
Because I did notice, because you see, I didn't catch the funeral procession because I was so engrossed with what was going on in the field.
Yeah.
But I did notice the fact that the Scarecrow had a flower, so I figured it was like something like that. But then to later, I think maybe as a signifier of how much time passed, the reason that the Scarecrow was lying in the street is kids had been playing with it.
Right. But that moment also, and the reason why I bring that moment up is reference to Zatoichi as a character, because talking about him have a sense of justice and wanting to be kind. Well, it allows him to not be at that moment, at that place when the bandits come to burn that house. But it also just shows that...
But don't you think he knew the house was burnt? Like, he knew the house was burning.
When he was walking away, yes. But before that he moved the Scarecrow before they got to the house. But it also just shows that, he could have just moved that to the side of the road or walked around it. He picked it up and went and planted it back. So it's the equivalent of picking a headstone up and putting it back on the plot.
Right.
When he didn't have to do that. But it goes back to what you were saying, that for me, I thought that was a really nice character moment to show that he does care.
Right. Yeah. And I think that he legitimately cares for Aume, the auntie.
Yeah.
And I think that he liked to help Shinkichi win at gambling. I think
That's my favorite stuff with Zatoichi. Because for me, I really am less interested in Takeshi Kitano's character than everybody else. And I still, my pet peeves with how he handles the violence in this film. And they even talk about, if you go to the IMDb trivia, how he really wanted to enhance the cartoonish nature of the bloodshed. And he asked the CG artists to up the exaggeration of the squirts. But I find it so bafflingly distracting every time there's an action
Yeah,
sequence.
no,
It
I-
frustrates
It's grown
me.
on me super hard.
Oh, really?
I love
Because
it.
I second that emotion, especially because I've movies like Lady Snowblood, where you have that kid
Arterial
ridiculous
spray.
Blood geysers,
spray and it's colorful and it's vibrant
And it's there, and it's on people's faces, and it's
Exactly.
left in the snow, and its presence, while weird and gonzo in this film, it disappears upon exit. But when Zatoichi is hanging out with the nephew and gambling and using his skill to help this guy, that's adorable and fun.
And the Zatoichi and the gambling house would be a staple
Right.
of the older films. Yeah, so I like that was included in the film.
But I also have a problem with just the casting of Beat Takashi. I always see Beat Takashi. It's like it feels like Beat Takashi playing Zatoichi.
Yeah.
And that's like another like veil that I have trouble getting beyond. And so when he's not on screen, I'm not thinking about that stuff, and I'm really engrossed in the stories of these villagers. But whenever he pops back up, I'm like, I'm pulled out of the movie.
It's quite the opposite for me. Like I enjoy watching, but for the very same reason. It's not, to me, Zatoichi will always be Shintaro. Like Takashi Kitano playing Zatoichi for me is Takashi Kitano playing Zatoichi, and I enjoy it so much because I'm so fascinated by his interpretation of the character. Firstly, secondly, as an artist, director, writer, filmmaker, and actor, I'm so impressed, and I appreciate his generosity in that it doesn't feel like an ego project, in that he allows himself to be in the background and allows the movie to be about those other characters, and he treats those other characters so respectfully. Like the geisha storyline, like he treats those characters so lovingly and caringly. Like I really appreciate that, and it doesn't feel like, well, I'm directing this movie and I'm going to star in the movie, so I'm going to be in every scene and it's going to be about me. It really feels like he is a necessary part in something much bigger than just Zatoichi the character. And so again, I think that the story and the other characters, their stories benefit from that.
but it was satisfying to see them team up too.
Oh yeah. I really enjoyed it. So as the movie comes, because earlier on in the film, these little story elements are being dropped here and there. There's always mention of the head of the Genzo gang and the head of the other gang, but you never see who these people are. And you mentioned, Lisa, that
You see the head of the Ginzo gang.
well, the true head.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
So, and you mentioned later on, like
you-
mysteries are being revealed,
Yeah.
and so how did that play for you?
I found it confusing at first.
Yeah.
Like whose role was what?
Right.
Because there was the guy who felt like the head of the Ginzo gang, and he would show up occasionally, and he was kind of like a middle-aged guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the guy who ran the geisha house, OG.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned, like, I thought that he just ran the geisha house, but apparently he was more involved than I thought he was. And then there was, like, a lot of time spent in this restaurant, but I didn't realize that the restaurant was also part of OG's until, like, later. So how people related to each other could get really weird and complicated.
So basically, it's like any other. It's actually like Yojimbo. So you have a town. So you have a tavern. You'll have a geisha house. But then you'll have a gang embedded in this town, and they have their hands.
Right, I
in all
get
of
that
these
part,
businesses.
but
Yeah.
like the who's who and who does what
Right.
was confusing to
Right.
me. So, but you're talking about the reveal at the end.
Well, even watching it this time, like I didn't remember it being revealed so early on that the older guy, at least the first older guy in the in the sake house at the bar
Right.
was revealed to be.
Well, he revealed himself because he figured out, he put together that he remembered the Naruto family and that those two children are at large, and he put it together himself.
Yeah.
And so he thought that he could ambush them in the geisha house.
Yeah.
So he reveals himself. So he was one of, and it turns out that he was one of the three.
Right.
But then, so he was one of the three, and then OG was one of the three, which I was just like,
oh no. So OG was not one of the three.
Yes,
he
he
was. Yes, he
was.
was. I'm sorry. OG was one of the three.
and then the big reveal is who was the Kitano boss.
Right. So the
Konnichiwa
middle-aged guy, OG, and the other older guy that works in there were the three. The Kuchinao boss, he didn't have anything to do personally with the murder of the Geisha family.
They just heard him talked about.
Right. They just worked for him. So, but at the end of the film, it's revealed like it's intercut with the festival that Zatoichi is. He knows that the first guy that says, "Oh, I'm the Genzo boss," after he dispatches him, he knows that he was lying, and he goes and finds the oldest guy that worked in the tavern, the unassuming older guy, who's revealed to actually be the head of the Genzo clan, which I thought was cool.
That is cool. But then there was also some kind of other clan war that just really came to nothing in this storyline, except for a really fantastic opportunity for Hattori to chop everybody to bits.
Yeah,
so that's great.
That was badass.
But
yeah, so and really that was just to show, for me, I think it just to show just the rise to power and the ruthlessness, continue to show the ruthlessness of the Genzo gang and their complete takeover of this town, because that other gang were also trying to vie for supremacy in this town.
right, so like at the opening of the film, it was established that the Genzo gang had recently beat the other gang for this small town.
Right.
So it was a time of transition, I guess.
Yeah.
In terms of that.
Yeah. So at the end of the film, in that festival, and obviously you love that.
I
and the
love
music
that.
and all that. I thought that was cool. So I
and completely unexpected, and how it started out so traditional with using the double stick thing, and then the shoes, but then it just straight up becomes like a tap dance number, which is like, like it's an American thing, like straight up tap dancing.
Yeah.
It was just so joyful, and then the moment that the Naruto sisters become children again, it's just so stunning and so joyful, and that was just absolutely awesome. And then we had the little, it's not really a tag because the movie's still going, but after that dance number, we have one final reveal and then not reveal. So in the final fight, second to last fight, Zatoichi finally opens his eyes, and he has these like piercing blue eyes, and the guy who was pretending to be
the Genzo boss.
Yeah. He goes like, "What? You can see all this time?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can. I'm totally sighted. And I just pretend to be blind so that my senses are heightened." And then he kills him. And then after the beautiful dance number, Zatoichi is walking with his eyes open, and he trips on a rock. Yeah. And he goes, "Actually, I can't. Actually, I'm blind." No, he said something beautiful. But he can't.
He said, even with my eyes open, I still can't see.
I still can't see. So he's totally blind.
Yeah. Is that what it means? Because for years, I've been going back and forth. In this most recent rewatch, I go, oh, so he can see. He can see. It makes sense now. But then that moment happens, and I go, wait a minute, is he blind? So for years,
I don't know. I don't
know.
think you can definitely say that he is blind or he is not blind.
But I tell you what, at the end of the day, I appreciate it, because if he's not blind, it's cool that he just walks around with his eyes closed, but I kind of want him to be blind, because all the shit that he does is just so badass. But then,
imagine if you spent all of this time heightening your senses by being blind, and then you could see. Like, you would just be the best samurai ever.
Does a moment like that ever occur in the original films? It's interesting.
And again, I think that's another thing unique about Takashi's take on this character that sets it apart, which I appreciate because it's a different interpretation. Again, the dance numbers, all the weaving the score into the character of the film, I think is something that is unique to Takashi Takano. So it really personalizes this particular take on the character, and I appreciate that so much, that it is something that's different than the original series. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well,
I did.
Can we just go back to the dance number?
Yep.
And how throughout the film you see everyday things being transformed into musical beats, and it all builds to this climactic, guys and dolls number. It's very musical moment. Mm-hmm. How do you interpret that? Like, why is that there in the film?
So, Lisa, go. Sorry.
My interpretation is that that it's just a celebration of the spirit and the life of the farmers and of the common people. So, like, throughout the film, the farmers fall into this natural musical rhythm when they're together. So when they finally have an opportunity to cut loose, they're gonna do something that's really vibrant and really beautiful. And I didn't mind them playing to the camera and really cheesing it up. I didn't mind.
And why?
Because it's like a heightened reality anyway.
And why is Zatoichi not involved in that number?
I think, firstly,
because he doesn't live there.
Yeah, I think that the festival and it taking that particular form and shape, presentation-wise, was a celebration of the liberation of that town. Zatoichi came through in the beginning of that film. There was an oppressive air about that town. Like you saw, Aunt Omi, she was sitting there being strong-armed for money, and they were beating people up throughout the film. They would come into different establishments and demand protection money from people. So the people of that particular town and that village, I think, were being oppressed, and so Zatoichi comes through. He takes part in a series of events that ultimately leads to the destruction of the gang that was that had its foot on that town's neck. And so it was a time for celebration. We're able to be free now. We don't have to just toil away in the field making music while we work. We can celebrate and be free. And so I think that's what that was.
And it's in the spirit of a musical number. Like, you don't have to sell a musical number to me. Like, if there's a dance number, I'm just like, hooray. So, like, I feel like the dance number is almost symbolic. Like, the dance number isn't literally happening, but it's capturing an emotion.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And I think that he was not involved because he
doesn't live there.
Yeah, he doesn't live there.
He's not part of the town. It's a celebration of the life that's inherent in the town, and he allowed that to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the same to him as it does to them, because he wasn't being oppressed. He was fucking people up his whole life.
And nobody was looking around going, "Where is he?"
Yeah.
Their lives were complete. He's like Puff the Magic Dragon.
Yeah, I think there were only only a handful of people who firsthand knew that he had something to do.
Not Puff the Magic Dragon, Pete's Dragon.
Puff's the Magic Dragons, that's it.
Yeah. They're growing that in the back of their fields. You got to.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, again, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I was nervous, admittedly, but I was thinking, okay, at least she's gotta like the music stuff in there and the dance scene at the end. So maybe she'll like that.
Lisa and I watched it separately, and as I was experiencing the film and thinking, well, how is she going to interpret this? And I had forgotten about the musical beats. And then when the climax happened, I was like, this is why Darren picked this movie. He's going to win Lisa over with dancing.
It's a great scene. Again, that scene where the two geishas, they morph back into their younger selves. That gets me the first time I saw that made me tear up.
Yeah, no,
that made
totally.
me tear up.
Totally,
so
stunning.
I love that moment.
To me, that moment makes the whole movie worth it. I mean, it is such a joyous occurrence that is, even with the breadcrumbs of the other, musical cues,
right,
incredibly unexpected to have this Hollywood dance number.
I tell you what, the first time I saw the film, even though I love when they morph from adults to children and then back, but the first time I saw that dance sequence, I didn't feel too strongly about it. I was like, why is this in the film? Like, what does this mean? But every subsequent viewing, the movie wouldn't feel right if it didn't end that way. It just wouldn't be what it is to me. And I love it so much. That the earlier scene, flashback sequence with the dance, that's my favorite scene in the film. But this dance number sequence at the end of it is just right up there. It's everything to me. I love it so much.
I also love the storyline of Osei and her identity. Like in the beginning of the film, she's a brother. She's but like she really embraced, even though it was imposed upon her, she really embraced the role of a geisha, and that became her identity. And so it wasn't imposed upon her anymore. It just was who she was. And so at the end, Shinkichi said, well, now you can just stay here and you can, go back to being a dude. And she's like, I like the way that I am. I'm fine the way that I am. And which I found so beautiful. And also the way Shinkichi saw her beauty and her freedom, and how he wanted a piece of that expression. And, he gave it a try, and whether it was for him or not for him was totally fine. But the fact that it made him curious and made him want to explore, and he just had this utmost respect for her and what she can do.
Yeah.
And I think that scene, that flashback scene, had a lot to do with his transformation. Yeah. In how he felt about her and how he felt about himself. Yeah. So I thought that, and nobody would notice if something like that was missing. Nobody would be like, if they didn't address that part of the story, it wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been missed. It's not like a critical part of the plot, but it was just such a beautiful moment. And there are there's lots of little details in this movie that I think that everything feels so considered, and there's not really loose ends except for like what happened to all those other. There were two other gangs, and I guess they're gone,
or they joined that dance number.
Who knows? Probably, but I really loved that. You knew I would love that.
Takashi says that that dance number contains no villains, and that's why Zatoichi's not in it, because he saw Zatoichi as a villain.
What? Zatoichi's not a villain.
I don't know if I agree with his interpretation, but that was his.
Was the Ronin in that scene?
No.
He's not a villain? Oh. So not a...
He was a villain.
Oh.
What did you think about that storyline?
Sisters,
They're not villains.
I guess revenge is okay?
Yeah, revenge is fine.
Real quick, about the Hattori. What did you think about that storyline about him going back to visit that old teacher?
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
the abusive teacher?
He was carrying a grudge.
Who was now a miserable old swordless dude.
Yeah, and I completely forgot about that. But now that you bring it up, yeah, so he went back. And I guess maybe that's to parallel when the old man was blinded. Like this thing where it's just like, well, if you're already...
Well, I just thought about that because you mentioned that with the details of the character who, if you took something out, it wouldn't necessarily change the story or whatever. But Kitano, not only with the geishas, but also with the Yojimbo, he was giving everyone these well-rounded characters in these backstories, and I just really appreciated that.
They did, he did not explicitly say when you were in a flashback, which got confusing. Yeah. So
I appreciate that, though.
Because I appreciate it because I get it in retrospect, and then I can go, oh, that was a flashback. Yeah. But it did give me pause, and I found that little part of the story a little confusing, but I followed it.
Yeah.
So I just dipped into IMDb to check on some of these actors again, and Asano from Ichi the Killer is also Hogan from the Thor movies.
Yep.
What? What?
And he played the interpreter in Silence. So I've seen Asano all over the place.
Yep.
I liked him.
All right. Well, yay. Thank you, Lisa. All right. So this is Brad's favorite time of the homework cycle.
That's right.
So you
Itmod Homework Royale.
So you got to rank them.
So what was the homework you gave me, babe?
Damn.
Damn. I gave you Tony Scott's Domino.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Brian gave you that dude who directed
White Man Can't Jump.
Jump.
Okay.
What's that guy's name, Brian? You just walked in the room. Ron Shelton. Thank you.
Okay. Well, here is my ranking. My ranking, Dasco. White Man Can't Jump on the top. That was my favorite.
Oh, nice.
Followed by Domino. Followed by Zatoichi.
What?
That's maybe not.
Oh.
Both Domino and Zatoichi, I found elements that really appealed to me. But also like did not feel like my groove. You know what I mean? But I really like part of like it's influenced partly by I really enjoyed talking about Domino. You know, and I really enjoy talking about Zatoichi. Don't want to hurt anybody's
this
feelings.
podcast, why you listed, listeners?
But my favorite conversation to have, and everybody should go back and re-listen to that episode, was White Man Can't Jump. That was so fun talking about White Man Can't Jump with Brian.
Nice.
So that one wins.
So Brian shows up just for the victory.
All right, so now your turn.
Yeah, my homework's next. But first we have the Itmod Film Club of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah. We've already gotten some hashtags in. Thanks, Chris Chaka. So everybody else needs to get on it. You guys have like 2 weeks.
At least 2 weeks.
At least
2 weeks, because today is Wednesday.
Yep.
We're on a plane.
We're on a plane, Brad and Lisa are, and Darren is on a plane tomorrow morning.
No, I'm leaving tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm in the airport right now, just chilling.
So we're all in transit at the moment.
Yeah.
And then we hit Austin in the morning of Thursday, and we stay a whole week. So watch our Instagram, our Twitter, our
Facebook Live feeds.
We'll have lots of good footage there. And then Brian is going off to Lost Weekend 8 on the 28th of September.
And I'll meet you guys there.
You'll meet up with him on the 29th.
On the 29th, we'll meet up with you guys.
Oh, Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think we're going to record an episode that Sunday because Lost Weekend will still be going. And then I get on a plane for work, and I'm gone for a week.
Jeez.
But that doesn't mean you guys can sleep on watching Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
What we're saying is you have plenty of time.
You have plenty of time, but do it now anyway.
You got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You
So
got
no
2
excuses.
weeks.
No excuses. And it's a great film. At the end of the
is.
day, like, shit, it's a great freaking film. It's a really fun watch filled with really awesome characters. And it's directed by Guy Ritchie. So, if anything, it's worth seeing.
It's my third favorite movie of all time.
Yep.
And we are going to be doing podcasting from Austin and Winchester. Do not fret.
Dear Lord. I'm going to be a freaking zombie when we get back. Oh, my God. Oh, man. But it's going to be so worth it. So, again, like they said, check out all of our social media. And if you can't be there physically, you'll at least get to experience it through our eyes. It's going to be amazing. So we're so excited. So that's going to do it for us.
Yeah.
Brian, tell the people they can find you.
You guys can find me.
Welcome, by the way.
Everybody heard him come in while you were talking. He
Welcome.
knocked like a gentleman.
Oh, yes, I did. Always. Find me at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, at Brian William Young on Facebook, and check out the HOMEWORKcast YouTube channel. And I'm also on Letterboxd, and yeah.
Wife Dork.
I am Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And be sure to check out my 2 latest articles on After Movie Diner, Emetophobe at the Cinema, and my review of the Scott Adkins vehicle, Savage Dog.
Yeah. B. Gullickson.
I can be found. I was like, why you call Lisa B. Gullickson? Oh, shit, that's me. I can be found on all social medias at MouthDork. And I'm going to plug stuff, too.
Yep.
Check out my Star Trek articles over at Film School Rejects. I just put out hopefully, I haven't written it yet, another defense of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Just because I know you guys love hearing me talk about Cybok. Check out that article.
And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and Letterboxd. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and until next time.